First of all, I did not want to make this video, but I knew this point was so important it had to be made. I've made it before, but not in these words. Okay, you see, a gangster lives in the ghetto, right? Instead of him saying, well, I live in this poor neighborhood where the plumbing doesn't work, sometimes our lights go out, we barely have food in the fridge, this broke down apartment complex, whatever. He says, well, this is my hood. This is the block. Okay? So now, instead of seeing himself as a poor person in a crappy apartment complex or whatever the case may be, he sees himself as a gangster in quote-unquote his hood. Whether it's Acacia Block, Nutty Block, whatever. He gives it a cute little name. Now he's gotten in the habit of perceiving. It's where you live, how you perceive it, and how it relates to your habits. He's gotten the habit of calling it the hood, his hood, whatever name he gives it, or it was already given. That's another part. Society helps you create your perception of it, by saying it that way as well. And unless you transcend and you start calling it the same thing, well, then you're at high risk of seeing it that way. So, where I live was the middle of nowhere for a lot of my life. At first I tried to form my own little crew out here. Most of the neighbors' kids weren't down with it, but some of them were. And we had our own little group. But we couldn't exactly call it the hood. And we couldn't exactly take it seriously either. We took our, alliance, our friendships seriously for the most part, but we didn't take this fucking place. So what eventually ended up happening is, between the martial arts that I was taking around the time I was 15 or so, and being in the middle of nowhere, it evolved into me calling it the Pyramid Temple, probably in my late 20s. But before that, I saw it as this kind of middle of nowhere savage place. Instead of me seeing it as being a redneck on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, the same reason, instead of someone in the ghetto seeing it as a horrible place to live, maybe even disgusting, maybe even a depraved place to live, a shameful place to live. That's really the word. Instead of them seeing it as a place they should be ashamed to live, perhaps you could put extras on it. They called it this block, this hood. For me, instead of me seeing it as a shameful place to live, and believe me, I saw it as a shameful place to live. And it took me a while to truly construct it, because no one was helping me construct it. It wasn't already established. It had a cool little name. I gave it a cool little name. I said, this is the Pyramid Temple, where I do my ancient Egyptian warrior fucking style training of Mantu arts, which I also called Mantu. And that's a story for another video if I ever make it. So, I created myself, not as a gangster. I reinvented myself, so to speak, as a warrior. Before that, I used to roam the city, and I used to try hard to be a gangster. And I was a gangster for the most part. I wasn't a perfect gangster. I wasn't your typical gangster. I was an outside fuck who went way the hell out of his way to make sure and to earn his respect as a gangster. Eventually, that wasn't enough for me. I evolved into being a lone revolutionary, training war arts in the Pyramid Temple, hell-bent, though I hate to use that phrase for obvious reasons, that term, to transcend society and to be counted among the greatest revolutionaries, if not a notch above them. Okay? So, that needs to be understood. That's part of this. There's nothing crazy about it. It is human nature. Are the 800,000 gang members in America all fucking suffering from mental disorders? Or was it environmental factors in human nature, and perhaps an inability to transcend? And so my, idea of myself, me finding myself, I found myself as a transcendent warrior, fighting for honor in the tradition of an Igbo Zulu, Igbo slash Zulu slash ancient Egyptian, ancient black Egyptian with a touch of Nubian, who was from the Temple of Horus. You know, as far as not my religion, but the type of person that I was. And my religion was Christian. And then there came a point when I started converting to Islam, but that's a story for another video. So all these things need to be understood. You see, I grew up socially deprived, just like a guy in solitary confinement, just like a sniper, you know, who's has a post away from everyone else, or he's been separated and he's just sniping people. He's in his own little zone. I was pretty much in my own little zone. I wasn't suffering from a mental disorder. I kept my mental health pretty well because I talked to women and I debated religion on the internet. My social interaction wasn't conducive to success in society, but it was very conducive to becoming a transcendent hero and having a deeper understanding and deeper insights into the world than everyone else, because I spent all my time reflecting. You know, I'd even neglect my studies in many cases and spend my time reflecting on the world and understanding how people saw it. And this contributed to my shyness, because as I understood more and more, I understood exactly, specifically to a T, why I wouldn't be accepted by my peers growing up in school. Because they wouldn't understand that I'm a black man who's not only black but tall and half African, half white, who lives in the middle of fucking nowhere on a ranch with 40 fucking horses at the time. Ain't that a bitch? Oh yeah, I assure you, it is a bitch. You know? I just was explaining this to someone earlier, and I described it as, you know, well, your dad's a brain surgeon, whoop-de-whoop, but I live on the moon. But you don't understand, your dad's a brain surgeon, you can do, look, motherfucker, I live on the moon. It's kind of like that, right? You know? If you can understand, if you can feel my pain for a moment. And it reminds me of these Hispanic kids who come to America, and they join gangs, like MS-13 and the Serranios. Not all of them. I'm not Donald Trump. I'm not saying that even a whole lot of them do, but the ones that do. And what do they say? They say they feel alienated by society, that they're different. Well, how many immigrants are there in California? There's millions, right? Well, maybe not millions, but there's hundreds of thousands. There's a lot of them. Whatever it is, there's a lot of them. Okay? I guess depending on how you define immigrant, illegal or otherwise, then there are millions, but that's a story for another day. There's probably maybe 2 million or so. I don't know. Whatever. It's a whole lot of them. But how many of half African, half white, tall brain surgeon sons are there? There is not many. There is not many. Okay? And there's the people who, you know, don't see it. My brothers didn't see it as big of a deal as I did. You know? And it wasn't really until I started going to different high schools that it was rubbed in. That's another thing too. My brothers didn't go to 6 different high schools. I did. They didn't go reform school and boot camp. I did. They didn't truly understand society and how ridiculous it was. I did. And so I'm going to these different schools, and I'm having to explain to people my quote-unquote weird situation over and over again. And I'm trying to understand. Every time I'm forced to put in a position where I have to think about, how should I break this to these people? You know? And part of it was broken already when the teacher would go, Chukwa and Mecca. No. She wouldn't even say that. She would say, you know, you're going to have to forgive me because I'm going to slaughter this name. Could you say it for me? And they say, oh, can you say it again? Could you say it again? Oh, that's such a nice name, blah, blah, blah. You know? And don't forget that all the bootlickers saying, oh, you're so tall. Okay, I was fucking the most alienated motherfucker every fucking where in the fucking state. Do you understand me? I don't think you do. So all the reasons they had, the broken household. My household was broken in a different way. My parents were way the fuck too protective. My mom would exaggerate stuff. I would get spanked maybe twice a fucking week or something like that. You know, and over 80% of the time, it would be based on the exaggerations of little bitch shit that fucking shouldn't have been a big deal in the slightest. I became toughened, became hardened, became vengeful, became angry. So I started rapping in my room and smoking weed over time, as you would expect, you know, as a lot of people do for less reasons. people turn to hip-hop, which nothing wrong with that, and marijuana, which I would argue there's nothing wrong with that too, but it's a story for another day, for less stressful reasons, less strenuous fucking lifestyles than I had. And of course, to make a long story short, my parents decided that there's a fucking mental disorder. When their high-class friends, their high-sedity friends would come over, they would say, well, you know, the reason why his music's loud and he, you know, drinks some marijuana, he's sagging his pants and he acts like this, it's because he has a mental disorder. You know, he has problems. You know, they're like, oh, instead of saying, oh my goodness, this black, you know, rebel guy, you know, they're saying, oh, poor thing. And my parents preferred that reaction, so it helped solidify in their minds the need to drug the problem away, which would permanently screw up my life and would make me, ding, 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 even more fucking weird than I already was when I was already the weirdest motherfucker in the state for my age. I was the guy who knew better than everybody else, and I was tall, black, and white, living in the middle of nowhere, the brain surgeon fucking father. An African, not just black, but African. I don't think you people understand it. No, you don't. You don't. You're starting to do it, but you don't. You don't. Okay? I knew my problems were related to having a broken household for a different reason than most people, which compounds the fucking problem. It doesn't help. It doesn't help to say, well, it's okay because it's a different type of broken household. No, it actually makes it worse. Anyway. So, as they attempt to drug the problem and it creates more problems for me, I come off as more weird because now I'm on fucking psych meds as the type of person I've described several times in this video already. So, I get my heart broken, more stress, more weed, more anger, more rap songs, more misunderstanding. I see the neighbor's daughter. I go to the psych ward for the first fucking time for going outside, seeing the neighbor's daughter. My parents came up with the extravagant, ridiculous, absurd, just fucking insane idea that I had temporal lobe seizures because I was high and I spaced out on a test, and I said, that's a good excuse for not doing well on that random test in summer school when I usually get A's in those math classes in San Jose State, which is around the time I started hanging out with gang members as well. Okay? So they don't understand me for dick. My dad's a whitewashed African, my mom's a white person, they're fucking high sedity friends, I'm African-American kind of culture, you know, they don't understand. And on top of that, I'm the weirdo among the African-American subculture of America, I'm the weirdest motherfucker in it. For the reasons I've stated before. And they've made me weirder, and they've alienated me more. And so everything, you know, from women to doing bad in school is related to that, not a mental disorder. But it's very convenient for them to say the problem is in me, you know, and it's my mental disorder, not the environment that they set me up to fail in, because they love saying, we've done everything for you, we sent you to the best schools, and blah, blah, blah. But that ain't shit compared to how much you sabotage me. That's like cutting my leg off and giving me a whole box of Band-Aids and say, look, we bought you a whole box of fucking Band-Aids. You know, but I can't even compare to that. It's like buying me a box of Band-Aids first and then cutting off my fucking leg. Depending on how you look at it. Anyway. So, we're almost out of time. Really what I wanted to say that, you know, the reason why I see myself as a warrior so much has to do with about, you know, I'd say about 19 years of martial arts training, 19, 20 years, and, you know, living in the middle of nowhere and defining myself, if not redefining myself, as a warrior. Instead of a cowboy, instead of a weirdo that lives in the hells, I made it work for me. I became some sort of a Shaolin monk. And to make things more complicated, there's a Buddhist monastery down the road. I shit you not. I live so far that there's not a monastery, a Buddhist retreat. A retreat. Why is it retreat? Because they retreat from society to help them transcend. So they're living fucking close to me, doing the same thing as I am. So for you to turn around and say, well, that's crazy for you to do that. How could you see yourself as some kind of guy transcending in the middle of nowhere? There's a whole fucking group. There's people who come from all over the fucking bay to come here to transcend. Well, I'm out of time. The point is, you people don't know what the fuck you're talking about. You can shove that psychiatry and that family-breaking feminist up your fat fucking asses.